This clip is a spoiler of the important content of the movie. If anyone wants to watch the full film, you can skip this clip. Viewers over 18 years old are advised to be cautious, especially those with heart conditions or elderly individuals, and should be under medical supervision. For those watching alone, it's recommended to hug a pillow. If you have a partner, hold them tight. I hope everyone enjoys watching and listening. Thank you.
A ghost story. In the car. The story begins with a young businessman with many secrets, who is riding a taxi on a road to return home. Then he wakes up hearing chanting. He doesn't know where he is until he sees his plane ticket. Peach realizes he landed from Chiang Mai. The taxi driver's son mentions his luggage is in the back, but Peach can't remember what happened before. The driver asks if Peach did similar things. Peach says he once burned a spider. Suddenly, a spider crawls on his shoulder, surprising him. The taxi driver's son said the luggage is in the back of the car, but apparently Peach can't remember what happened. After a while, the driver tells him when he was a kid, he enjoyed catching flies and putting them in an ant's nest to watch them get taken apart. Then the driver says, "You never did that right. You seem too refined." But since Peach is not one to back down, he quickly replies he once burned a big spider and its babies. As he finishes, a spider crawls on his shoulder, making him jerk, but he sees nothing. Then the driver asked, "You never did anything like that, right? You seem too refined for that." But Peach replied that when he was a kid, he once took a big spider and burned it, watching it die along with its babies. Just as he finished speaking, suddenly, a spider crawled onto his shoulder, startling him. But when he looked, he didn't see anything. After that, Peach picked up a newspaper to read, and on the page, there was a story about him from when he was a child. A ghostly hand suddenly appeared, slowly reaching out towards him. The driver, noticing this, pretended to be calm, but the ghostly hand vanished. When he looked around, he didn't see anything. Then Peach picked up the newspaper to read, and on the page there was a story about him from when he was a child. Suddenly, a ghost hand appeared, slowly reaching out towards him. The driver, noticing this, pretended to be calm, and the ghostly hand vanished. Peach asked the driver why there was an old newspaper in the car. The driver replied that a customer must have left it behind, but Peach still felt surprised at the coincidence of finding an article about himself as a child. The driver then said, "In this world, nothing is a coincidence." A ghost appeared from the back of the car, and Peach was completely unaware. When the driver saw this, he acted as if he was calm, but it seemed like he wasn't an ordinary person. Peach asked the driver why there was an old newspaper in the car. The driver replied that a customer must have left it behind, but Peach still felt surprised at the coincidence of finding an article about himself as a child. The driver then said, "In this world, nothing is a coincidence." A ghost appeared from the back of the car, and Peach was completely unaware. When the driver saw that, he acted as if the female ghost was something unusual, suggesting he wasn't an ordinary person. Then Peach started to remember an event from his childhood. The day he told his dad that he would be richer than him. That very day was when his parents were taken from him by a criminal, and Peach found himself crying without even realizing it. Pete noticed the driver had a gun, making him feel unsafe. He mentioned unfamiliarity with the road, and the driver explained a detour due to construction. The driver asked if Pete had heard of cars vanishing on lonely roads at night, and shared a story about someone taken to the spirit world instead of home. It sounded like their situation, but Pete dismissed it as nonsense since he wasn't a ghost. Suddenly, the radio played an old interview of Pete. Surprising him, the driver suggested a radio glitch, but the strange events made Pete distrustful, and he tried to open the locked car door. Sometimes, a car would come and run away, and then it would disappear again. There was also a story about a person who was about to go home, and then someone came and invited him to get in the car and drove away. But the driver didn't take him home, but sent a spirit instead. The story that the uncle told seemed similar to the poison that came with the uncle. But Pete thought it was nonsense because he himself wasn't a spirit. Then suddenly, the radio turned on Pete's interview, which made Peach feel surprised that his interview, that had been going on for so long, had suddenly started happening. Uncle said that it was probably just a signal, but the events that happened in the car made Phi start to distrust the driver and tried to open the car door, which was locked. Then the scene revealed a ghostly woman who appeared and vanished. Suddenly, there was a conversation between Pete and one of his subordinates, where Pete ordered the subordinate to deal with a female broker who was getting in the way of his business. Pete felt like everything happening in the car was way too coincidental, and the car door was locked. He decided not to talk to the driver about what he wanted and instead grabbed the driver's gun to threaten him. The driver told Pete he shouldn't have ordered the woman's death, but Pete insisted on knowing who hired him. The driver couldn't stop until they reached their destination. The driver remarked, "It's sad to do terrible things until they seem normal, even though they're not, and you had a choice." Pete shot, but the driver seemed unharmed. The driver said shooting someone easily showed ordering a woman's death wasn't hard for Pete, just like telling the ghost to handle her. The ghost of the woman Pete ordered killed appeared, haunting him. She choked Pete, making him struggle to breathe. The woman transmitted her pain to Pete, telling him she was pregnant when killed, and he took her life and her unborn child's. As soon as he finished that sentence, Pete decided to pull the trigger immediately. However, just a moment later, the driver came back to life as if nothing had happened, even though Pete had tried to shoot him. The driver told Pete that shooting someone so easily showed that ordering the death of a woman probably wasn't hard for him at all, just like he had told the ghost to deal with that woman. At that moment, the ghost of the female broker that Pete had ordered killed appeared to haunt him. She emerged and started to choke Pete, making it hard for him to breathe as he desperately cried for help. But the driver just said, "If you go through the tunnel ahead, you'll be there soon." Meanwhile, the woman transmitted the pain she endured into Pete's body, telling him that when she was killed, she was pregnant, and Pete had taken her life along with her unborn child. Her spirit was filled with vengeance. As Pete was about to lose consciousness, the radio reported that his flight to Bangkok had crashed, killing all passengers. The driver told the ghostly woman she couldn't take him. The truth was revealed. Pete had died in the crash. His child sent Pete's spirit with the ghost of the woman he ordered killed. At their destination, the driver told Pete it was time for judgment. Realizing the truth, Pete panicked, saying he couldn't die now as he had worked hard and had a family to care for. He pleaded to return. The driver said Pete sounded like his parents, whom he had also taken. Pete's parents were waiting for him. He accepted his fate and told them he had done wrong before they embraced. And the child was the one who sent Pete's spirit, along with the ghost of the woman he had ordered killed. When the driver arrived at their destination, he told Pete that he had to get out here and it was time for him to be judged. Upon realizing the whole truth, Pete started to panic, saying he couldn't die now because he had worked so hard and hadn't even spent any of his money. He also mentioned that he had a wife and kids to take care of, pleading with the driver to let him go back. But the driver told Pete that he sounded just like his parents, because he had once taken Pete's parents to their destination too. The driver then said that Pete's parents were waiting for him. The scene revealed the spirits of Pete's mother and father standing there to welcome him. Pete then came to terms with his fate and told his parents that he had done wrong before they embraced each other. The driver shared some wisdom, saying that most people tend to do anything to achieve success, without really thinking about whether what they're doing is good or bad. In the end, the only things you can take with you are goodness and your soul, not the money you've earned throughout your life. A ghost story at... Go and find it. The story begins at a hotel. A young woman with a sixth sense enters, looking for room 644. The male staff escorts her, and she meets her friend Palm. She realizes the staff and Palm are ghosts. A ghost rushes past, startling her. Tiwa then said she wanted to check into room 644. The reason she came to this hotel was to help release the spirits based on the news she had heard, and she was hired by Grandpa Wan Chai, the hotel owner. The male staff then took her to the room, and along the way she ran into Palm, who always had a Polaroid camera with her to show her friends whether what she was seeing was a person or a ghost. She photographed the male staff and Palm, realizing they were ghosts. A ghost rushed past, startling her. The male staff led her to room 644. Tiwa saw ghosts exiting the adjacent room. She entered room 644. Tiwa calmed herself, there to help spirits move on. The male staff then took her to room 644, but just as Tiwa was about to enter, she encountered a couple of ghosts, a man and a woman, who had just walked out of the adjacent room. She entered room 644. It had a passage to the next room where the male ghost had exited. Tiwa calmed herself, reminding herself of her mission, yet ghosts haunted her. Luckily, her friend Som called with hotel updates. Som said online, cries and gunshots were heard at midnight. At that time, Tiwa listened, opened the next room, and asked Som what happened. Som shared a woman had an affair with the hotel manager, meeting for a romantic rendezvous in room 646. She had her friend Som, who would call her with updates about the hotel. Som told her that online, rumor has it, at midnight there are cries of a male and female ghost and gunshots. At that time, Tiwa listened and opened the door, asking Som, what happened? Som said a woman had an affair with the manager and met in room 646. Then a man shot them. Staff and a housekeeper entered and were shot. I listened and asked Som, what happened? Som said a woman had an affair with the manager and met in room 646. But then suddenly, a man barged in and shot both of them. At that moment, the male and female staff also came in and got shot as well, along with the housekeeper who followed them in, silencing her as the last victim. This incident happened 30 years ago. People still hear sounds at midnight, causing everyone to leave, so Grandpa Wanchai hired her to help release those spirits. Currently, Grandpa Wanchai lives with his granddaughter, Pao, who asked Tiwa if she could help the spirits. Tiwa told her she couldn't help yet and called Som, saying this job was unlike previous ones where she could just talk to spirits. Spirits would move on, but not here. She asked Pao if anyone had ever performed a ritual to release the spirits, as these spirits repeating actions suggests a binding ritual was done. Payu said no one performed such a ritual. Hearing this, Tiwa wanted to try again. Spirits will move on. Auntie, you're stuck. Tiwa plans a ritual. Payu and Grandpa left. But for this hotel, it doesn't work anymore. She asked Pao if anyone had ever performed a ritual to release the spirits, because the fact that these spirits keep repeating the same actions suggests that someone must have done a ritual to bind them. However, Pao said that no one had ever performed such a ritual. Upon hearing this, Tiwa wanted to give it another try. She promised Pao that she would make it happen by tomorrow, and then Pao and Grandpa walked away. At that moment, Tiwa picked up her camera to take a picture, but she didn't see anything unusual. She promised Payu that she would do it tomorrow, and then Payu and Grandpa walked away. At that moment, she picked up the camera to take a picture. She didn't see anything unusual. On the way home, Som called Tiwa to tell her that the case at the hotel happened over 30 years ago, but they still haven't caught the culprit. Even though the victim was the wife of the hotel owner, the case hasn't progressed at all. Som then asked Tiwa why she seemed so dedicated and serious about this job. Tiwa reflected back to her childhood, the day her parents were murdered, and how she had to lie next to their bodies until help finally arrived. After that incident, she started seeing ghosts and vowed that if she ever got a chance at a new life, she would make the most of it. The next night, Tiwa returned to the hotel and encountered the same events once again. Since that incident, she has been able to see ghosts. She vowed that if she ever got a chance at a new life, she would make the most of it. Tiwa returned to the hotel and encountered the same events. She explored the hotel, meeting spirits that hadn't moved on. Feeling compassion, she was determined to help. Using a Ouija board, she tried to communicate, but some spirits chased her away. Others helped. The Ouija board spirits warned, the murderer is still here, and horrific events unfolded. Tiwa lifted the mattress and discovered a spirit-binding potion. She took out the glass spirit board and tried to communicate with the spirits. However, some of the spirits were trying to chase her away. Luckily, there was another group of spirits that were trying to help her as well. The spirits that were connected to the glass board spelled out, "The murderer is still here." And the horrific events of that night unfolded once again. Tiwa decided to lift the mattress in the room, and that's when she discovered a spirit-binding potion. Tiwa asked Grandpa Wanchai for more information, but a spirit possessed her, saying, "Why did you kill us?" She fainted. Grandpa Wanchai advised her to stop. The spirit transferred into her. She saw something strange in a picture and returned to the hotel. When she woke up, Pao told her Grandpa Wanchai said to stop, and she didn't need to continue. But after Tiwa left, it was revealed the spirit of the dead had moved from Grandpa into her. Looking at the picture of Pao and Grandpa, she noticed something strange, like a vengeful spirit pointing at Grandpa, prompting her return to the hotel. She entered secretly, and Som warned her that dying in a room with trapped spirits meant her spirit couldn't be reborn. Tiwa didn't care. She wanted to free the spirits. As she returned to the room, she chanted to release them. Seeing spirits in pain, Som, who had called to provide more information, suddenly entered and strangled Tiva, causing her sacred necklace to fall. When Tiva entered, Som warned her that her spirit couldn't be reborn. Tiva didn't care. Returning to the room, she started to chant to release the spirits, seeing them in pain. Som, who called her, came in and strangled Tiva. Tiva was pulled out by a child spirit. Meanwhile, Pao was possessed by the evil spirit from Grandpa. Som explained the hotel owner was cursed by Ning, who had an affair with Saman. Later, both were shot dead. Tiva was pulled by a spirit, while Pao was possessed by Grandpa's spirit. Som explained that the hotel owner was cursed by his wife, Ning. They were shot. Tiva was tied before Pao vanished. Som freed her and helped Grandpa Wanchai, who revealed the truth. The spirit possessing Pao used spirit oil. It possessed her for 30 years, trapping spirits. Spirits wanted Tiva to perform a ritual to free them. As Grandpa was dying, the spirit aimed to possess Pao. Then, Tiva was dragged and tied up on the fire escape stairs before Pao disappeared. Luckily, Som managed to cut the rope around her neck and went to help Grandpa Wanchai, who was lying down. Grandpa Wanchai then revealed the whole truth to Tiva, explaining that the evil spirit possessing Pao came with the spirit oil used to cast a spell on her. This evil spirit had been possessing her for over 30 years and had trapped all the spirits in this hotel. The vengeful spirits of the dead know that they want Tiva to perform a ritual to release them, hoping that once the spirits are freed, no one will disturb this hotel again. Meanwhile, Grandpa Wanchai is on the verge of dying, and Pirun intends to possess Pao next. Then Grandpa Wanchai pleaded with Tiva to help Pao. Then, Tiva returned to the same room and encountered a spirit trap drawn in blood. In an instant, the evil spirit within Pao went wild and tried to attack her. But at that moment, Tiva saw the trapped spirits writhing in agony. Seeing this, she spoke to the spirits, reminding them that they were all dead now and had no physical bodies left. So, how can you feel pain? Hearing this, the spirits became aware and tried to help capture the evil spirit that was possessing Pao. Before Tiva picked up the sacred necklace that she had dropped, she pressed the pendant against Pao's forehead while chanting a spell to drive the evil spirit away. In the end, Tiva managed to hold on and helped free all the spirits so they could be reborn. Before Tiva picked up the sacred necklace that she had dropped, she pressed the pendant against Pao's forehead while chanting a spell to drive the evil spirit away. In the end, Tiva was able to help free all the spirits so they could be reborn at last. She remembered when someone helped her as a child and shared the wisdom that if we can let go of what we're attached to, a new life is waiting for us. She remembered when someone helped her as a child and shared the wisdom that if we can let go of what we're attached to, new life is waiting for us. A ghost story. Palm leaf. A young writer is attacked by energy, watched by a Thai man with a sword. He gets an email about a palm leaf manuscript in a rental house. Jay travels to the house owned by Aunt Nuan, saying previous writers vanished. Before the scene, cuts to Jay, a horror fiction writer who received a strange email about the legend of the palm leaf manuscript in a rental house. Since Jay is looking for a quiet place to write his novel, he decides to travel to that rental house, which is owned by Aunt Nuan. Aunt Nuan tells Jay that several writers have stayed there before, but suddenly they all disappeared. But Jay didn't think much of it. Then Aunt Nuan brought Jay into the house and mentioned that there was a prayer room on the mezzanine. She also said that another writer named Com lived next door, and Com had been there for almost 2 years, seemingly working on some kind of research. Then Aunt Nuan told him that he had to follow 3 rules. First, if you hear any strange sounds, don't say anything. Second, no matter what, don't go into the side of the house. Third, pray at the prayer room on the mezzanine before going to bed every night. Then, on the first night, Jay encountered something strange when he started seeing odd shadows appearing. Then, in the middle of the night, something suddenly fell onto the bed where he was sleeping, which really startled him. He found a bundle of cloth with palm leaves inside. Jet showed it to Aunt Nuan. She was shocked and asked where he got it. Aunt Nuan reminded him not to forget again. She told him to pray immediately. It was shown. She had received similar bundles from a previous writer who disappeared. While Jet was praying, a ghostly dancer appeared behind him. When she saw that, the aunt made a shocked face and asked Jet where he got it from, and also asked if Jet had prayed the night before, to which Jet said no, because he was very tired and sleepy and had fallen asleep. The aunt then reminded Jane not to forget again, or else go back. But when Jane was about to ask anything more, the aunt did not answer and told Jet to go pray right away, before the aunt walked back into Pai's house. The scene showed that Aunt Nuan had received many similar bundles from a previous writer who also disappeared, without asking for anything, just saying, "Please don't take him away." Meanwhile, while Jet was praying, suddenly a ghostly dancer appeared behind him, and Jet was still unaware that something was watching him closely. That night, Jet was thinking about the title of his novel, but then he experienced something strange when the window in front of him opened and closed by itself. When Jet looked at the paper on the table, he saw a message written that said, "You're going to die," which started to make him feel a little scared. That night, Jet pondered the title of his new novel. Suddenly, the window opened and closed by itself, and he saw a message on the table, "You're going to die," which scared him. Despite this, he couldn't think of a title until another cloth bundle fell into the room. Picking it up, he heard a voice telling him to write it down. This strange event and the palm leaves he found led him to research online, realizing the writings were part of a true tradition. Rumors said someone once wrote on ancient palm leaves for fun, causing their writings to come true, yet he still couldn't name his novel until the cloth bundle fell again, and a voice urged him to write it down. The strange events and the palm leaf manuscripts he encountered led him to do further research on the internet, which led him to learn that everything written on palm leaves was traditionally believed to be true, but there were also rumors that someone had the mischievous idea of writing on ancient palm leaves, which caused the writings to actually come true. We cut to Com. Writer living next door watched Jet. Com was researching palm leaf legends. As many writers renting Jet's house disappeared, people were aware of writer vanishing. For over 2 years, the house was protected, with rituals against spirits and evil entities. Next morning, Aunt Nuan brought Jet rice porridge. If he had prayer last night or anything unusual occurred, Jet didn't share whole story or mention second palm leaf bundle to Aunt Fang. Everything was normal. Aunt Nuan gone. Jet grabbed palm leaves. He wrote, "This is one." Then, it felt like his writing was coming true. Jet almost put palm leaves away. Memories of his past life filled his mind. The next morning, Aunt Nuan brought Jet rice porridge. Jet didn't share the full story. After Aunt Nuan left, Jet, curious, took out the palm leaves and wrote, "This is one." Suddenly, it turned from day to night, and what he wrote seemed to come true. Memories of his past life flashed. It was like being in the past, watching the enemy with a friend named Pan, who called him Master. Jet jolted awake to Aunt Nuan calling him. After Aunt Nuan walked out, feeling curious, Jet took out the palm leaves and wrote the first sentence, which was, "This is one." Suddenly, it went from day to night, and it seemed like what he was writing was actually coming true. Seeing this shocked Jet a lot, and he was about to put the palm leaves away when, at that moment, memories of his past life flooded into his mind. Jet felt like he was in the past, with Pan. Jet awoke to Aunt Nuan bringing food. Jet spoke like an ancient person, alarming Aunt Nuan, who sought help. Memories of Jet's past life flooded in. He sensed his past self influencing his present. He felt something was off when Jet spoke like an ancient person. Aunt Nuan quickly sought help. Memories from Jet's past life flooded his mind, prompting him to jot down stories of his past life, feeling his past self was changing him. Com was surprised by Jet's intense case. Aunt Nuan was more worried than usual, but said nothing. That night, Jet wrote on palm leaves, thinking it was a new plot, but it was about his past life. The more he wrote, the more the past returned, including anger and vengeance from past enemies. Jet was attacked by spirits of his past life. Com was surprised by Jet's intense case. Aunt Nuan seemed more worried than usual. That night, Jet wrote on palm leaves about his past life. As he wrote, the past returned. Jet was attacked by spirits of his past life. But that night, Jet took what he had written down and started writing it on the palm leaves, thinking it was a new plot he had just come up with. However, it turned out to be about his past life. The more he wrote on the palm leaves, the more it felt like the past was coming back to him, including the anger and vengeance from his past life's enemies. At this point, Jet began to be attacked by the spirits of his past life. Despite this, he still didn't stop writing. Even though Jet tried to pray to ward off the spirits, it seemed like it wasn't working. But even so, he still didn't stop writing. But even though Jet tried to pray to ward off the spirits, it seemed like it wasn't working. In the end, Jet realizes that he was the one who made mistakes in his past life. In that life, he led a handful of villagers to fight against an enemy that numbered in the thousands, simply because he believed that they would have reinforcements from the company to help them. But there were no reinforcements at all, which led to the deaths of the villagers, and they became his karmic adversaries, including his best friend. When Jet learned the whole story, tears of guilt flowed from him, simply because he loved his country and was trying to protect his homeland. That night, the department secretly came in to collect a sample of Jay's blood and dropped it on a palm leaf. This made it clear that everyone in his research were Jet's or Jan's karmic adversaries from past lives. Then, Aunt Newell revealed that Jet or Jan reincarnated as Panon from a past life, and that both Com and Jan were also Jet's best friends then. Aunt Jan asked Com to help Jet, as in Com's research, after taking blood, some would die soon or go insane. She warned Jet not to get involved with the karma from the past or repeat the cycle of birth and death. That evening, as rain fell, Jan revisited past events. With Aunt Newell's love, she was determined to save her child from the karmic adversaries Jet led to death. People warned Aunt Newell not to get involved with the karma from the past, because otherwise, she would have to keep going through the cycle of birth and death to atone for it. That evening, as the rain fell, Jan was about to revisit past events. With Aunt Newell's love, she was determined to save her child from the karmic adversaries Jet had led to their deaths on Instagram. She tied a sacred thread around the house, trying to call Jet back. Meanwhile, Jet was attacked and injured by these adversaries. In the same province, Com, Jet's best friend from past and present lives, decided to help Jet. However, another best friend harbored immense hatred. A flashback showed Jan and Plan were best friends in a past life, but now, Plan's vengeful spirit prevented his rebirth like Jet and Jan. Plan awaited revenge on Jet. Jet urged Plan to kill him to end their hatred, hoping they could be friends again in the next life, but Plan couldn't do it before his spirit faded away. The scene flashes back to show that Jan and Plan were once best friends in a past life. However, in this life, Plan's desire for revenge prevented him from being reborn like Jet, and Jan, Plan's spirit, was waiting to take revenge on Jet. Jet then told Plan to kill him right now, so that their hatred could end in this life, hoping that in the next life, the three of them could be best friends again. But in the end, Plan couldn't bring himself to forgive Jet before his spirit faded away. Jet still didn't know if Plan would forgive him or not, but Aunt Nuan mentioned that, after that incident, no one rented the house anymore, and no one saw any ghosts again. Jan then returned to her normal life, remembering both the current events and her past life, and she reflected on the idea that one person can create a lot of karma for others, but only forgiveness can lighten everything. He returned to live his life normally, remembering both the current events and his past life, and he reflected on the idea that one person can create a lot of karma for others, but only forgiveness can lighten everything.